Hi, welcome to Our Family Bee.
I'm Brandon.
I'm Brigitte. And today we are talking about the 3 biggest struggles we've had in marriage.
And the one solution we've found that addresses them all.
All right, so let's go.
Welcome to Our Family Bee. If you're new here, we're a family of 4. All of our names start with B.
We are building a community to inspire real people to love well, live wisely, and be better together. Today we are talking about our 3 biggest marriage struggles and the one solution that addresses them all.
Before we get into it though, let's give a little synopsis of where you and I have come from and what's kind of been our marriage journey. So we met after church one night at a restaurant because of a small group.
We started hanging out.
We dated for 8 months, we were engaged for 5 months.
Then we got married. We have 2 children here with us on earth, a 4-year-old and a 14-month-old, and one in heaven that was an early miscarriage in between.
Yeah, we struggled with infertility with our first, and actually one of our biggest fights ever was on the kitchen floor, screaming at each other, crying, trying to figure out when we should start trying to have kids in the first place.
And although we had talked about how many kids we wanted and the fact that we both did want kids, we never talked about when we were going to start trying to have them. And it never crossed our mind that we would have a struggle in this area once we started trying.
But we're giving too much away. We'll come back to these struggles.
We are completely different people.
True story. I am an extreme extrovert.
And I am an extreme introvert.
I like camping and shooting and woodworking and video games.
And I like being home and organizing and cooking and sleeping.
Our first big struggle in marriage has been, shockingly, communication. We are completely different people in so many serious ways. Conflict resolution, the way we talk about things, communication in general. Like, for instance, I like to actually talk and communicate. And my wife...
I like to think about things. You know, I process internally. So
Yeah.
When we got married and all of a sudden someone's talking and really he's not talking to me sometimes. He's just talking out loud because that's how he processes, which I have learned over the years. I think he's trying to tell me something and I'm like, okay, well, yeah, we'll do that and we have to do this. And he's like, no, I'm thinking. And I'm like, okay, but I think in my head. Is that not what you do? So yeah, we are very different and the way we communicate is very different.
And you can see this really clearly in the way that we handle conflict, right? Because for me, the way I handle conflict, I don't want to have conflict. I want us to be on the same page. We both want that. We both want to have unity in our marriage. And for that reason, when I see conflict, it is an enemy. And I am going to kill it. I am going to end it right here and now. We're going to squash this thing. It's going to be over. We'll have no more conflict. Addressing it this way tends to cause conflict, actually, because your reaction to conflict...
Right, well, when I come into contact with conflict, I first want to run away. But when I know I have to address it, I want to methodically address it. So I want to think about it first, you know, in my head, and process away from everyone. That means away from him, away from the children, like I need to be alone so I can think through things in my head to come to a realization that I can then share with you.
It took us several years to figure this out, and we're still getting there because it's so different. And when she does that, that just makes me think there's more conflict. Oh, she's running away. She doesn't want to address the issue with me. And so I go after it, which makes her feel like...
You're attacking me!
Yeah, so that's our number 1 big struggle. Number 2
is expectations, both realized and unrealized, which I did not realize in the beginning because we all have expectations and our expectations can come from the past or the way we were brought up. So when I grew up, my parents were always home for dinner and we ate family dinner together. They had decided that was very important for the family and so they made steps to make sure it happened.
Yes.
So when we got married, I was like, okay, I'm gonna make dinner for us. We're gonna have it together at this time every night. And
I work in ministry. And so sometimes that doesn't happen. And we talked about it and I agreed it was valuable. But again, my expectation was that meant, great, we'll try for that, but it's just not gonna happen all the time and it'll be okay. It was not okay.
Well, I didn't realize that I was equating that with feeling valuable and loved by him because to me, I saw that growing up as something that was priority. You know, it meant love, it meant the family was together, it meant everything was okay. And when it wasn't happening, I ended up getting hurt and I didn't realize why at the time until, you know, years down the road when I realized I had that expectation and never communicated it because I didn't even know it was there. There can also be expectations about chores and who's gonna do them. And though we talked about it before we got married,
Yep. We thought we had it. We thought we had it figured out.
yeah, when you get married and everything starts fleshing itself out in real life, you realize sometimes that it's not what you thought it was. And so, who was gonna be responsible for what was something that we had to work through, and we both expected different things, and again, those unrealized expectations creeped up and caught us off guard. So that was big struggle number 2.
Big struggle number 3 is just having different love languages. If you're not familiar with that concept, there's a book called The 5 Love Languages by Dr. Gary Chapman, and he lays out these 5 different ways that most people tend to either receive or to give love. They tend to be the same. For instance, I, as one of my love languages, have words of affirmation. So I feel very loved when I am affirmed by someone I care about. And because that's how I feel loved, and this is how most people are, I give out those words in the same way. We found out this was different when we were dating. Because I loved her. And so I'd tell her how much I loved her and how beautiful she was and what a wonderful person she is and how I couldn't wait to spend the rest of my life with her. And that meant approximately nothing to her whatsoever.
It's not true. It's just, it was lower on the filling up the tank priority.
Yeah. So what's your love languages, babe?
My love language, the top one, is acts of service. So when you do something for me, like make me dinner, like when we were dating and you made me dinner, like that was awesome. I loved it. I felt so like cared for. And now, like when you do dishes or mop or like take out the trash, like that speaks love to me. And so I appreciate and do need the words, but that's not like the number one thing that makes me feel like cared for and loved in our relationship. It's acts of service. And so when I want to show you that I love you, I do things for you. I make your dinner, I prep everything ahead of time, like I do your laundry, like all of those things to me say, I love you. But to him, they're nice.
They're nice, I appreciate them.
Not necessarily the number one thing that he wants to feel loved by.
Yeah, and so there are 5 different love languages. There's words of affirmation, physical touch, acts of service, gifts, and quality time.
We actually did a video before on the 5 love languages. We can link it down below in the description box and up in the cards, but it's about the 5 love languages, what they are, how you can better understand them, and how to find out what yours are. Those were our 3 biggest struggles, but there is one big solution for all of those.
That's right, and there's no quick fix.
No, because the one big solution is, quick interruption to say, if you haven't already subscribed, go ahead and hit the button down below. And make sure you hit the bell and select all so you don't miss anything else coming out. Also, go ahead and join the family on Instagram at OFB Social. We would love to connect with you there and see you in the comments. Also, check out our blog, which is ourfamilybee.com. Okay, let's get back to it. The one big solution is committing to a lifetime of learning.
Yeah, and this really requires us to make 3 major decisions. To commit to a lifetime of learning means you gotta make 3 decisions. The first decision you gotta make is to assume a posture of humility. It is really hard to learn anything about our spouse or how to be better if we think we know it all. And it's so easy, I think, to get in our heads that like, oh, I've got her figured out, I understand her. We legit had a disagreement last night because I thought she was saying something that was pretty selfish. That was not what was happening. I just decided I understood her well enough to decide that was what was going on. Instead, I could have assumed a posture of humility and thought, okay, well, I don't have everything figured out, and maybe I could have learned something. So we've got to assume a posture of humility so that we're ready to learn something about our spouse.
Yeah.
You've never got it all figured out.
The second decision we need to make to commit to a lifetime of learning is to accept that perception is reality. Intentionality doesn't really matter. If I tell you, hey, I'm sorry, I meant to get you a birthday present,
Yeah, okay.
but I never did, he's not gonna feel love, and it's not gonna convey the fact that I really do love him, because it was only my intention. I didn't actually do anything. So it's so important to understand how the other person is receiving what you're saying or what you're doing, because that's what ultimately matters, is how they are perceiving what you're saying.
Yeah, it's one thing to mean something, but it's another to make sure it's communicated in such a way it's going to be received that way. And if you know that it is possible that it may not be received the right way, and this is a hard lesson to learn in life in general, let alone in marriage, because you also have to be humble to accept this lesson. If you know it might be received the wrong way, you can revisit. You can think about how to communicate this in a different way so it's actually understood the way it's meant, because there's a saying about roads being paved with good intentions, right? The third decision we have to make to commit to a lifetime of learning is to always pursue understanding. It is so easy to get stuck on trying to be understood, but if we pursue understanding, we're going to be in a much better place. If we both are seeking to understand the other, we can actually make progress together. It's kind of like two different people speaking different languages. It doesn't really matter what you're saying if you don't understand them, neither of you are getting anywhere.
Right. If you're only speaking in Spanish to me and I don't speak Spanish, then he could be saying all the greatest
muy
things.
difícil. Ella no me puede entender.
I have no idea. Like, it's more about creating a shared language. So things that we come together and are able to communicate effectively with because we've learned each other and learned our love languages and learned how we resolve conflict and all of that.
Yeah, and you really need to consider that people are as different from each other, even in the same culture, because everybody's so unique, as one culture might be different from another. I give a thumbs up all the time if somebody's asking if something's okay.
I do too.
Yeah, right? It's a universal sign in this country. If you do it in the Middle East, you're gonna have a bad day, right? It's extremely insulting, but it's normal for us. Well, it's a different culture. In the same way, not every person is a monoculture. Everybody's unique, and that includes the person that you loved so much that you committed to spending the rest of your life with.
In always pursuing understanding, I think it's good to say that we should just believe the best.
Yeah.
Because when we believe the best, more often than not, we're gonna find that understanding that we're looking
That's
for.
good. Yeah.
I mean, the chances are you married that person, you both do love each other, but communication is hard. And so when we believe the best,
in like their intentions, like we believe
Right.
they're doing, like how often do you think your spouse is actually legitimately out to get you?
right.
Probably not. But we kind of get this idea that they're being malicious in some way because of our understanding. If we believe the best in their intention, we're gonna arrive at understanding quicker.
Right. We won't get so defensive and then start this fight, but we'll take that humility like we were talking about and we'll believe the best, and through that softness, like we are able to communicate better.
That's good. Okay, so to sum it all up,
Our number one big solution is to commit to a lifetime of learning.
which you do by making three major decisions. One, to assume a posture of humility.
2, to accept that perception is reality.
And 3, to always pursue understanding.
We hope this was helpful for you. Comment down below, what is your biggest relationship struggle and how have you overcome it?
Yeah, you guys can catch all of this over at our blog. Again, that's ourfamilyb.com. We'd love to see you around more in the comments as time goes on. We're just trying to build a community here. If you did like it and you haven't yet done so, click subscribe right there. Give us a thumbs up. And then you want to see more? There's videos over here. You can watch some of those.
We love you guys. Until we meet again, don't forget,
Life is better together. I think that worked out okay.